people know you as a state title winning coach, but not many people know you as the strongman lifting competitor. Where did this all get started?
It started for me, I guess it's been 10 years ago I started getting into pretty heavy lifting, and I started competing about 7 years ago, and it was actually a kid that I coached at Trinity International University, and he's a big, strong kid, and he had got into strongman, and he told me about it, so I was like, let's give it a shot, and I was pretty much hooked from the get-go. Just really enjoyed pretty much everything about it, and so I'm still going strong. I try to compete probably somewhere between 6 or 8 times a year. I usually do not compete during the season just because it's difficult. Our Saturdays are pretty tied up, and so but I'll compete basically from April through October, and try to get in as many as I can, and try to continue to get stronger. So
walk me back to that first competition. How did that first competition go? What were you thinking? How did you feel by the end of it? What were your emotions to that first competition you placed?
I was nervous going into it. I really had no idea what to expect. And this was a smaller competition that I did for my first one, which is probably a good way to start. And there were only 4 competitors in my class. And so, but I just remember being really nervous, which was kind of fun because I hadn't really had that type of feeling since my playing days in Europe. And so, it was a lot of fun. I remember being really sore for the next couple of days, but I think your body starts to get used to a lot of the training, and hopefully you get to a point where you've trained enough that a competition day is essentially another training day. The biggest difference on a competition day, it's a long day. I mean, a bigger contest, you'll start oftentimes at 8 or 9 in the morning, and you may not be done until 5 or 6 in the evening. And so it's just a really long day, and it's hard to train for that aspect of it. So you just rely on get the adrenaline going and try to rely on that.
So starting training 7 to 10 years ago, how does that translate into a national champion, just this past October? No, excuse me.
It was in September.
September,
yeah.
This past September. How does that translate from there to here now?
Well, that's one of the fun things about the sport of strongman is that I'm 46, almost 47 years old, and I'm still getting stronger. And so, to me, that part of it has been fun, just trying to push the limits of the human body and kind of see where we can go. And, eating is such a big part of it. And, those guys that are at the highest level, eating is something they do almost around the clock. And I'm not at that point. I eat a lot, but not to the level that those guys do. But I've been able to see a pretty steady progression in my weights in different events, and the moving events I really enjoy. Just picking stuff up and moving it, carrying it, or loading it. Those come really natural for me. It's probably from my farming background and baling hay and all that kind of stuff. But those events were pretty natural for me. I mean, the tougher ones for me were the static lifts, like a deadlift or an overhead press, things of that nature. So those are lifts I continue to work on and try to get better at.
Now, going back to your playing days, you played professional ball. You see a lot of this with football players, where when they get done playing football, they'll go into heavy lifting, but not so much with basketball players. Have you always had this stocky, bigger build to you as far as a weightlifting body? Yeah, I've always been bigger, I would say. I mean, I started my career in Europe at about 220. By the time I retired in 2006, I was playing at about 240. And, I had put on good weight. It was muscle weight, but if I could do it again, I would have probably stayed at 220 just because of the toll it took, I think, on my joints. But now I weigh about 300 now. I mean, the highest I ever got was about 315. And so during the basketball season, I typically end up at about 300. And then once I start competing in the spring, I'll try to push it back toward around 315. What do your guys think about you competing in these events? They probably think I got a couple of screws loose, which, to be in strongman, you probably need that. But, I think it's helped me as a coach, just to try to find a balance. I love to compete. I think competing's fun. And so, and for me, when I retired from playing, it became evident pretty quickly that coaching was not
at least for me, going to satisfy kind of that competitive itch that I had. And so I think I tried one men's league for basketball, and it was okay, but it was just it wasn't the same. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to compete in strongman, because for me it's fun to compete, and I honestly enjoy the training as much as I do the competing. And I think it was Cervantes, the ancient philosopher, that said the journey is better than the end. And I think for me that's been the case in strongman. I just love the training. I enjoy it. Chance to get some solitude. I usually get up here alone and listen to some music. And as a Christian, for me, it's an opportunity to worship and to give back to my Creator for all that He's done for me. So it's been a blessing.
You talked about early mornings being up here. You start your routine at like 5 o'clock in the morning, right?
Depends on the day. Yep.
Why did you choose early mornings? How does that help you prepare for the day ahead?
I mean, I've just found that's the best time to get up here. And my wife and I have been blessed with 7 children, and we're gradually getting them out of the house, but we still have kids that are at home, and I love to be home. And that was one of the blessings of being in Europe all those years, was I got to spend a lot of time at home with my kids, which I would not trade that for anything. And so, for me, it's just a matter of prioritizing and saying, where do I really need to be? And, when I can be, especially during basketball, it's difficult. I don't get as much time at home. And so for me to try to lift anytime other than first thing in the morning is really difficult. And so I've just found first thing in the morning is, for me, makes the most sense.
You mentioned your competitive edge with coaching, playing basketball, and now competing in these competitions. How do you hope that translates to your kids and the message that gives them later on in life?
Yeah, and for me, it's something that I think about, a Bible verse in the book of Colossians. It says, "Whatever you do it heartily as unto the Lord." And that's the approach that I try to instill not only into my kids, but all the kids that I coach. Whatever we're doing, whether that's on the basketball court or academically in the classroom or in the weight room, we should always give everything that we have because of what Christ has done for us. And so that's the approach that I try to take to it. And to me, competition is fun, and it's more fun than winning. And I think that's important. There's a lot of people that love to win, and my kids from the time they're 2 years old have loved to win. But I think you kind of got to learn to enjoy and to love competing. And that's what we try to instill into all of our kids that come through our program. And if you lose, you come up short, you shake your opponent's hand, but you're also saying, let's go again. And I think that's kind of the mentality we're trying to instill.
You talked about your first competition, now going to when you won the national championship in Las Vegas. What were the emotions when you realized that you had won that competition and you were a national contender?
I mean, that was really rewarding, and I had been to Vegas. I think this was my sixth trip to Vegas for nationals, and I had never finished higher than third place. And so this was a year, the events going into it I really liked, because in advance what the events are going to be. And so I knew the events were to my liking. And, I got in there and I felt good and was able to win the first couple of events, got a little momentum going. So it was definitely very gratifying.
What would you say your best event is?
Anything moving. I mean, I like they call it a farmer's carry, where you just basically pick up 2 handles and walk with them. And another event is called a yoke, where you essentially stand up with a bar on your back and walk with that. I like those. I like the Atlas stones, the big concrete stones. I enjoy lifting those. My weakest event has been the deadlift, and that's something I just keep getting better at. But that's where I still have the most room for improvement.
And out of all of these accomplishments that you've done, what would you say takes the cake as your biggest accomplishment you've done?
I mean, honestly, I tell people I would way rather be a success at home than I would be a success professionally or in the area of strongman or anywhere else. And so to me, I have an amazing wife. We've been married almost 25 years. We've been blessed with 7 children. And, to me, that's our greatest accomplishment as a couple, is the 7 children that we've been fortunate enough to parent, and to me, I think that would be what I would be something that I'm the most proud of is just my wife and kids.
What is her message to you when you come to her and you say, hey, I want to try this out now, or I want to do this? What does she say to you?
I think she knows me and she understands me, and I think that's part of the beauty when you spend 25 years with a person is that you just continue to learn them. And I've learned her so much over the past 25 years, just like she has me, and so we just kind of know what makes one another tick, and she understands, for me, how important this time in the weight room is, and so she's been fully supportive. But at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm giving enough time to her in that relationship and to my children, and so I think there's definitely a balance there.